Yeah. Ms. Renner, have you got bills that need to come out? You sure? Y'all, there's a 22-pound breakfast right there. If I eat during this, y'all don't think nothing about it. Y'all bow with me. Gracious Heavenly Father, here we are again, asking you to forgive us of our sins, to lead us and guide us, to let us do pleasing things. Give us compassion and moderation. I ask these things and ask you to stay with us at all times. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, good morning, everybody. Compassion and moderation. And I don't have much compassion in moderation. Since y'all hadn't got anything else to do today, y'all can step here and talk as long as you want to on your bill. But knowing anything over a minute will not get on the calendar. And for everybody here, all bills are not going to be on the calendar. Okay? Don't burn my house down or threaten to, because I'll come back at you. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two bills. House Bill 382 is on page 2, close to the bottom at modified structure. This is a bill that was on the calendar yesterday, and we pulled it off to take it back to Judiciary to do a little bit more work on it and bring it back to you, asking you to put it back on the calendar. This allows schools to enter into joint use agreements for recreational facilities so that they're using them after school hours, and it gives them some protection as long as they enter into a joint use agreement. And the other bill is House Bill 197. It's on page 3 under structured, and this is the Forest Land Protection Act I came and talked to y'all about a couple of days ago. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you. Just slow down one. Mr. Reinders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may I say you look extraordinarily dapper this morning. Page 2, page 2, right above modified structure, House Resolution 549 asks for your and the committee's favorable consideration for a House Study Committee on professional licensing boards.
That certainly sounded like a good bill.
And I appreciate your co-sponsorship.
Any questions, Mr. Ryder? Thank you.
Thank you.
Seatmate, Ms. Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look on your yellow sheet, you'll find House Bill 513. I would like to ask for consideration that we pass this bill out of rules. And it's to abolish the Georgia Medical Center Authority and take the money that's in reserve and put it in the state treasurer. They have, in essence, stopped all of their, we don't need them anymore. They're not doing anything in all their in my opinion, and my committee's opinion. It's time to do away with them.
Any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Asking for 461. It's on your front page down at the bottom. It's the Medicaid carve out for dental services to allow the DCH to carve it out of the CMOs. On your left side over there, Mr. Chairman, some of the folks couldn't hear. I have a physical note, but it's a mental physical note that there could be an $80 million savings. Could be, but it may be $20 million savings, not a cost.
Is that a mental note? Is that what you said?
There's a mental physical note, yes, sir. Be glad to answer any questions.
I don't think anybody has any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of your hard-working committees is coming up with some repeal acts. They're on the second page, up toward the top, 536, 37, 38, 39, and 40. All of these are repeal acts on population bills. As you know, they're unconstitutional, and we're just repealing those. They don't do anything. Honestly, they're just bills that just need to be gone. I'm just, as a note, there's 327 of these things, and we're going to try to bundle these things up somehow or another during the summer. And it's going to take a lot of work to try to repeal these acts, but it's something that needs to be done and get this stuff off the books and do it. I'm sorry it's taking, we're doing them one at a time. I apologize. We're going to try to get it where we can do an unbundled bill. But that's basically what those do. And I also have on first page House Bill 52, and it's the appointing of the Adjutant General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Whoa.
Got your questions?
Just one real briefly, and for the sake of time, could you check with Legislative Council and see if we can't bundle those four bills together?
I'll try. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna see if we can check them. We'll try to do that in the morning.
Yeah, that way it's modified open. That way you could just put it on.
In talking with Mr. Lanier and with Ms. Long, they had asked us to do them separately until we can, because they have separate
That's fine.
subject matters. That was the reason that they didn't bundle them, but we've got to come up with something.
That's fine. No problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Trying to save time tomorrow.
Mr. Bruce.
Good morning. I'm back to ask for House Bill 150, fifth item down on the first page, to stop the extortion of individuals whose mugshots have been taken down from public sites and from private sites and put on from public sites and put on private sites, and then charging people to remove them even though they have not been convicted of anything. That's it.
Good bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, I have to say that you are looking sharp this morning, and so is everyone else on the committee. My bill is 3077. It's on the first page, modified open, 3/4 of the page down. This is a bill that protects retirees. It prevents their pension funds from being garnished. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I come before you today asking for consideration of House Bill 517, page 3, under modified structured. This is a bill that would allow local control of beer and wine package sales as far as setback distances from college campuses. It does not address any educational campuses other than college campuses, and it would put packaged beer and wine sales on an equal footing with what currently is law for consumption on the premises. Currently, local governments have flexibility for on-premise consumption. They do not have flexibility for package sales. Entertain any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to ask for House Bill 512. It's on page 3 at the bottom under structure. This bill is addressing those that have a Georgia carry weapons license and expanding the areas which they can carry. We're removing bars, places of worship, or adjusting government buildings to those that have active security personnel. Also in the school safety zones, we're allowing them on college campuses, except in residence halls and dormitories, and fingerprinting it, not redoing it upon renewal, and also adding Representative's Battles Bill, which gives school systems a choice to have an armed employee, and also Representative Chairman Powell's bill that talks about unknowingly bringing a weapon into a commercial airport. Also, we're looking at we would like to give sole responsibility of the administration of all rules regarding possession, transportation of firearms to the General Assembly. Mr. Chairman, I understand there is an amendment. We have an amendment to this bill.
It's on your desk. Okay.
It's AM 292156.
Okay. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we have an amendment, shouldn't we move this from structured to modified structured so that we can vote this amendment out as well?
I'll do that in a minute. I'll do that in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jasper, are there any constraints on the size of the government building or the number of security guards that there have to be? So, for example, if we were thinking about the Fulton County Municipal Complex, the government building that sits a couple of blocks away, would the mere presence of one security guard then open that entire building, that entire complex up to having weapons carried throughout the buildings?
No, ma'am. In the bill, it says there's actively checking. If there's an active, I forget what exactly it says, but they're actively checking. Not just someone sitting at the desk that would, but you'd have to have a security guard at the door actively checking people.
So just to be clear, so if there's one person, if there's one security guard at that front gate, that front door, and the complex is the size of a city block, the presence of one security guard would then open that entire complex to allowing persons to carry weapons within the complex?
It would not, because it would depend on his activity and what he was doing. If it's actively...
Can you show me where we define that?
If you look on line 107, or I believe it's 106, it says where a courthouse or ingress into such building or courthouses is not restricted or screened by security personnel during the hours the government building or courthouse is open for business.
So this would only permit it if you don't have a security guard. So if there's no one else with a weapon, then you can carry weapons. But if there is someone with a weapon, you can't carry weapons.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Jaspers, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come to ask for your consideration in allowing us to vote on the floor for House Bill 236, which is on the first page under Modified Open, number 10 from the top. This legislation would update the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, which provides the substantive and procedural framework for the establishment, modification, and enforcement of support orders. This is a bill that is in the State Bar of Georgia legislative package, and I'll answer any questions, but thank you in advance for your consideration on behalf of the children and dependent spouses in Georgia to help them with child support issues.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Atwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly wouldn't want to curry favor, but I know that as a former Marine that the chairman does recognize the fact that I have my Marine Corps tie on this morning. I've asked him
And
for...
y'all thought that's the only reason Wendell got all his stuff out.
Probably so. Yes, sir.
I think we're letting all yours out too, aren't we?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
that's what,
I'm asking for consideration of House Bill 458, Mr. Chairman. It's third from the bottom on page 1. And this House Bill 458 simply increases the deductible cap for condominium association insurance policies from $2,500 to $5,000. It hasn't been changed, or last time it was changed, but was before the 2008 Great Recession. This not only allows the condos association to purchase cheaper insurance, but also helps to prevent a special assessment being passed on to the individual condo owners in the event of a special assessment need by a few units, and that is essentially all it does.
any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dutton.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, appreciate the time. I come to ask for House Bill 100, middle of page 2. It is a bill that actually repeals the emergency powers, the specific emergency power of confiscating firearms in a declared state of emergency. We brought this through judiciary with unanimous bipartisan support, and I ask for your consideration.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I come to ask for House Resolution 410, and it's located on the second page of the yellow sheet on the House resolutions. And this is a resolution, Mr. Chairman, that simply asks the International Olympic Committee to keep wrestling in the Olympic Games after 2016. 410, House Resolution 410. On the yellow sheet. Second page of the yellow sheet on the House resolution. Third page? I only have 2. Okay. Page 3, you're right. I just helped.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the committee. I bring you HB 132, second page, second bill under modified structured rule. This bill responds to the request by the 2 boards of dentistry, boards of pharmacy, to provide for the safety and welfare of the citizens of Georgia while moving from the Secretary of State's office to the Department of Community Health. There have been no additions of powers of subpoena, rulemaking, or change in the scope of practice of dentistry, pharmacy, or hygienists. The board will continue to operate as before with the statutes of Georgia, assisted by the opinions and the guidance of the State Attorney General's office.
Questions? Thank you. Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm here to ask for your favorable consideration on a bill that's on the yellow sheet. Page 1 is center, 196 is the number. This bill, I'm carrying this bill for the city of Savannah primarily, but it's a bill that requests DOT to notify cities and municipalities that has a tree ordinance before they remove trees in road projects in their municipalities.
It's on the yellow sheet. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Call his attention to, on the back page, under structured rule, House Bill 669 gives protection to purchasers of properties at tax sales at its time of redemption. Also, under structured rule 211, motor fuel excise tax are removed from fuel purchased and paid for by school systems. And on the front page, under modified open, House Bill 133, property easement has to do with giving an easement to family members to get to family cemeteries that are landlocked.
Any questions? Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On modified structured rule, the second page, House Bill 318, and also House Bill 213. And I would like to put my name beside Representative Bryant's House Bill 196.
Wait. What was the last one, Ron?
The yellow sheet, House Bill 196. Representative Bryant.
Okay. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for two bills on page 1 under modified open. House Bill 203, simply correcting some addresses in code. And on page 2, House Bill 282. And I'd also like to put my name beside two bills on page 2. Chairman Weldon's 434, the bottom of the page 2. And then also Chairman Knight's on page 3 under structured HB 399.
Okay. Mr. Setzler.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, on page 2, modified structured HB 100, I've actually had constituents tell me the only reason they own firearms is, heaven forbid, a state of emergency is called and they have to protect themselves and their families. And this is a measure that has been considered, and I would hope we could have a chance to vote on this year.
Questions? Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 1, if you go to the third hole down on the left, House Bill 301 under modified open rule. This is the licensing for roofers. Then on page 2, under modified structured, the last bill on that is House Bill 434. That's the material miscellaneous revision. And then on page 3, House Bill 520, and this allows for cities and counties to get their certificate from the Superior Court for their local option sales tax if the Supreme Court strikes down the baseball arbitration clause that's in the present law. This is really important to lots of cities and counties out there.
Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked for House Bill 41 again. This was a matter dealing with the new cities that were created after January 1, 2000, and deals with the service delivery strata agreement with water and sewer. I'd like to also respond further on this House Bill 520 that Mr. Weldon talked about. There's litigation ongoing where some counties are challenging the constitutionality of the baseball arbitration. If that were to prevail, it would catch a lot of cities and counties without the ability to finalize a new certificate, negotiated certificate. So it is relevant that we try to get that done to protect those cities. It provides for another roughly 4 months time after the decision.
Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put my name by Representative Bryant's bill, HB 196. See if we can get that on the blue calendar and perhaps get it on the floor by tomorrow afternoon. Also, put my name by HB 499, Representative Sheldon's bill, and also ask that it be moved to modified structure. I think that's a better place for it at the appropriate time.
Ms. Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for House Bill 499, page 2, modified open. This bill simply ensures that that there are provisions in the Affordable Care Act that allow, I guess, doctors to be held liable for Medicaid malpractice if they're in breach of certain administrative procedures, and that definitely goes beyond the scope. So this definitely clarifies that. And I'd also like to ask for House Bill HR 107, page 2, modified open. It is a study committee, joint House and Senate study committee for Medicaid. House Bill 272, the Angel Investor Act, page 3, structured rule. And then House Bill 494, page 3, modified structured. Thank you.
What was the last one?
HB 494.
$494.
Yes.
Modified structure.
Third page, I'm sorry, page 3, modified structured.
Okay.
Representative Welch's bill.
Okay. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 434 at the bottom of page 2, and that's that mechanics liens bill. And the other one is right above it, 407, which is that ignition interlock, which will get to draw down the money from the feds.
Mr. Cassis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, on page 1, under modified open rule, House Bill 184, which is the authorization to operate by means of accreditation. And I'd like to put my name by House Bill 490, also on page 1.
Mr. Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3, under structured rule, HB 272, this is the extension. I'd like to ask for HB 272, it's extension of another 2 years of the Angel Investment Tax Credit.
Ms. Dempsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 2, I have 3 measures to ask for on page 2 and 3. The first one on 2, all under modified structure. HB 290, the Family Care Act, which will allow for a more transparent relationship between employer and employee if the company of 10 to 50 employees has a sick leave policy. An employee may use a maximum of 5 of those days to care for a sick child, parent, or spouse. It is $290. It does not in any way mandate that they add sick leave. It is if they have a standing sick leave policy. And then,
let's do questions. Any questions? Because these are new. Yes, Mr. Chanel. Oh, never mind. Wait a second. We thought you had a question. Let's go back to Ms. Dempsey. She had
290, HB 290.
Do the other 2.
Okay, the next one is HB 511 on page 3, and this is a bariatric surgery pilot for the state health benefit plan to study a maximum of 70 very qualified patients, 75 a year for 2 years.
God, thank you.
And then there's one more. House Resolution 603 on page 3 as well, which is also involving bariatric surgery, and this is to seek more information from the 2,000 plus state health benefit plan employees who have already had bariatric surgery, to go a little deeper, get a little more information to try to follow them and see what the actual results are and if it is a savings to the plan.
Now, Mr. Chanel.
Who has a question?
Who has a question? Mr. Hamilton.
This question is to the author. If this is not mandating it, why are we putting it in code?
Which are you talking about?
I'm talking about 290.
On 290.
We've had some similar measures in industry and
right.
labor, and I'm just curious as to why we're putting it in code if it's not a mandate.
Right. It is not mandating that you add sick leave policy in any way. It's if you have it, that the employee cannot be fired or punished in any way for using a maximum of 5 days of earned sick leave to care not only for themselves but for a fellow family member, immediate family member.
So the employer, if they have sick leave, they don't have to provide the sick leave if they have a sick person. You're just saying we're acknowledging it, that they have that right? Or?
Some companies do not have a sick leave policy at all, but this is if there is, that that parent can take a day to take their sick child truly to the doctor rather than saying, I am sick, when actually they might need just a few hours to step away from work and not create the challenge that it is for some.
Okay, I just want to clarify. So you are mandating if they do have a sick policy that the employee can use a sick family member caring for that sick as a sick day. You're not requiring that they have a sick day policy, but if they do have a sick day policy, you are now mandating that they use it, that they are able to use it.
That they are able to use it for that without persecution in any way or job loss for a maximum of 5 days.
Questions? Now, Mr. Mick. Do that one again, Mickey. We can. Hello. It's okay. That's all right. I'll do it. It's 495. It's the state conveyance, the state property conveyance. Okay. Any questions? But you're just pushing it. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3, third from the top, House Bill 486 is just a bill that we've had that we passed earlier this year, and another bill that the Senate decided to pull out. It's just trying to clarify some language on these commercial towers that are out there trying to get an emergency vehicle, get semis and all off the road. It's for emergency towers only. They're still getting tickets, and it just helps to fine-tune and clarify it for public safety. And I'd also like to put my name beside under modified open House Bill 150 on the first page, House Bill 100 under modified structure on the second page. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I too would like to, on page 3 under modified structure, House Bill 495, and it's being asked for by State Properties there, and I'm a co-signer on that particular bill. Page 1, modified open, House Bill 461, Chairman Rogers' bill. Page 2, modified structure 132, Representative Hawkins's bill. And page 3, modified structure 434, Chairman Weldon's bill. Very important bill to our area.
Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to place my name by House Bill 461.
Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3 under modified structure, I'd like to again request House Bill 487 dealing with the regulation of Class B adult redemption games.
Mr. Jackson.
Chairman, I'd like to ask for House Bill 316 on the modified open rules on page 1. And also like to put my name beside House Bill 377 on the modified open rules on page 1.
Mr. Smyrie.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for a request, House Bill 506. That's on page 2 at the top. We passed 451 yesterday, but this is the bill that places the process of the election of the chief judge, of the judges that we're going to elect. So we need House Bill 506. And I'd like to put my name by on page 1, a good bill, House Bill 150. On the top of the page, House Bill 150, and also like to add my name to House Bill 372. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'd like to ask for H.R. 73, compensation resolution for Latham Ward. I also like to add my name to HB 377.
The minority leader, Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To add to the chorus, would like to put my name beside HB 150, Representative Bruce, page 1, modified open rule. HB 189, Representative Buckner's notice provision on page 1, modified open rule. HB 377, Representative Mabra's bill as well. Thank you.
Mr. Williams. Oh, Mr. Williams, I don't see your button pushed over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it might be the secretary, but
It's this strobe light. I can't hardly see anything over there.
just turned him off. Yeah, I just turned him off.
Never mind, you can't ask. He's cut you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for HB 501 on the yellow sheet. It's the directing the Department of Transportation to remove all trees in public right-of-ways capable of falling on the interstate. And
What was the last one? I heard 501.
it's House Bill 501.
Okay, on the yellow sheet.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Beside House Bill 196, Mr. Bryan's bill, and also House Bill 377 and House Bill 434, House Resolution 410. And he almost got me on 512, but I was alert this morning.
Sometimes we aren't near as alert as we ought to be out here, boys and girls. Mr. Powell. Okay. Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name by House Bill on the third page, House Bill 511 and House Resolution 603. Those are about studies to find out the effectiveness of bariatric surgery. It was a service that we used to offer employees, and I'd like to put my name by this, but also about, on the third page, House Bill 290, that really ought to be called the honesty and sick leave policy. Caretakers now that have to take care of children and elderly people are often fibbing about why they're off, that it's their sick themselves, and this would allow them not to have to do that.
Anybody else?
Well, yours.
Okay. Mr. Earhart, it never ceases to amaze me. This is 3 years what we want done on the last day. You should have warned me a little bit. You know I'm not very bright, therefore I didn't listen. Oh, I know. We're fixing to light y'all up. You bring a sleeping bag tomorrow night. In the chair's opinion, sometimes that's not very bright. But y'all all have got a nose too, so y'all have got an opinion. The majority leader just gave you a heads up. We got 8 bills left over from yesterday. And I'm sure these are the most important bills that we've ever done. But we're going to handle the most important one first. On your desk, you've got an amendment for HB 512. I'm going to. And as a reminder, the majority leader made a motion to move to modified structure. Any opposition? Okay. It's under modified structure under 512. You've got the amendment. I have a move and a second on the amendment. Any opposition to the amendment? All right, the amendment's on. That brings up, do I hear a motion on 512? Move. Any opposition? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes clearly have it. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to Rule 33.3, I would move at this time that debate be limited to 1 hour, to be divided at the discretion of the speaker. Okay.
Have a motion second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That is the way it is. Again, modified structure 512. Under modified open on the yellow sheet, HB 513. Did I hear a move? Any opposed? It's on. Under structured, HB 399. Any opposed? It's on. Okay, on HB 399, you have a motion to do 33.3 and limit discussion to 1 hour to be used at the speaker's discretion. All those in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? All those in favor signify by aye once again. Aye. Okay, it's on. It's on with an hour time limit. I don't know what I've said up here. Y'all have confused me all morning. Under structured, HB 211. Any opposed? It's on. Under structured, HB 197. Any opposition? It's on. Under structured, HB 69. Any opposition? Modified open, HB 150. Any opposition? Modified open, HB 184. Any opposition? So, modified open, HB 189. Any opposition? I like my own notes up here sometimes. Under modified open, HB 203. Any opposition? Mr. Hamilton, should we put an hour time limit on that one?
Nothing to do with casinos.
Okay. Under modified open, HB 458. Any opposition? Modified open, HB 490. Any opposition? Under modified structure, HB 463. Tom, you want to move on that one? We're just going to think, y'all jump in here anytime you want to. Any opposition? Modified structure, HB 486. Any opposition? Modified structure, HB 487. Any opposition? Modified structure, HB 494. Any opposition? Modified structure, HB 511. Any opposition? Modified structure, HB 517. Any opposition? Modified structure, HR 73.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to Rule 33.3, I move that the debate on this bill be limited to 1 hour, the time to be divided at the speaker's discretion.
Have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Under modified structure, HR 603. Any opposed? It's on.
No idea.
Under modified open, HB 499.
Move. Mr. Chairman, however, I would move that that be moved to modified structure. And then I would also move to limit debate. I guess that needs to be two separate motions.
Okay. You have, the first move is to move to modified structure. Any opposed? Okay, it's modified structure. The second move is to limit debate to an hour under 33.3. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's under modified structure with 33.3. Under modified open, HB 506.
Move.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Even though I'm going to do these and take a move if somebody's got a problem. The next 536, 537, 538, 539, and 540.
Move.
collective move. Okay. Any, those are repeal bills, y'all. We need to do about 1 million of those. Now, any opposed?
Should I move to limit debate on that, Mr. Chairman?
To a minute. Under modified open, HR 107.
Move.
Any opposed? Under modified open, HR 549.
Move.
Under modified structure, HB 132.
Move.
Modified structure, HB 434. Any opposition? Under modified structure, HB 282. Any opposition? We have opposition. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by no. Okay, it's on.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Rule 33.3, I would like to move to limit debate on that bill to 1 hour, time to be divided at the speaker's discretion.
Second. I'm going to allow that, even though the author told me it'd take him about 1.5 minutes to do this. Okay, it's on. Limited. Under modified structure, HB 318.
Move.
Any opposition? Under modified structure, HB 407.
Move.
Any opposition? Under modified modified structure, HB 372.
Move.
Any opposition? Under modified structure, HB 382.
There you go.
Do I hear move?
Move.
Any opposed? So, y'all bear with me.
Which one?
Struck down because our lost, is that good?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can you look at 520 in case the arbitration clause gets struck down? It's modified structure. Last page, 520. We got two. Or what if it gets struck down?
Okay. It's 43.
If you counted all these things, including the one that added at the bottom.
He says he's got 2 more years to worry about it.
But that's counting 513.
So we got supplemental calendar. Those two can go.
I'm done.